I'll introduce myself now because I'm actually going to say some things. My name is Andrei Postolache. I'm the founder and managing director of a leadership consultancy company called Introspecials from Iași. And it's my pleasure to have a chat tonight, a fireside chat, with Marius Istrate, the Chief People Officer of UiPath. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Hi, everyone. Feels a little bit like a late night show in the US context.
Exactly.
Let's hope we can make it just as fun.
And now we can have jokes if you want. So thank you so much for accepting this. And the first thing I really want to ask you, so today, these days, UiPath is like a huge company. It's like the most famous IT company in Romania. Everybody's talking about it. But when you joined, it was a smaller company, a much less known company. What made you join? What did you see there? And what did you want to do there? And what happened? Did it exceed your expectations?
When I came to know UiPath, I came to know UiPath as leader of another company that was a supplier of UiPath. I was leading a company that was doing HR software and technical recruitment for a lot of technical companies, IT companies in Europe. So I came to know UiPath in this way. They were a small company indeed. At the time I met them, small in the sense that we were talking about 60 people, around maybe $4.5 million in annual recurring revenue, which was a performance. I will not say the contrary.
And now you're close to 2,000 and it's less than 2 years later.
Yeah. But I was mesmerized, first of all, at the complexity and the quality of the software platform they had released, and I say this as a software engineer, not as a people leader. And I just identified an opportunity because I was discussing with them, sort of consulting, helping them gradually ramp up their teams and recruit some technical profiles. And while discussing with a few of the hiring managers, I realized their problem was not to recruit, but their problem was that there was no people function in UiPath, or HR function as it's classically called. They were simply haphazardly working with some agencies trying to fill spots in the company, and that's not a sustainable way to build an organization. So I then met with the leadership team. I think it was for a lunch on Christmas Eve of 2016. They were preparing to go off to India to the office that was there to spend the end of the year and the beginning of the next year. So I had lunch with them, and we went through all of this and what it means to build a people strategy and what it means to think of organizational design and building on an organization on the long run. A people-first organization, we say at UiPath. And when we say people-first, just for clarity, we don't necessarily mean employees first. We treat everyone as people. We treat customers as people. We treat partners as people. We treat suppliers as people. We treat robots as cattle. Yeah, so we actually, when we implemented the first robots within my department and in the finance department, we were so excited about this that we thought of giving them names. And our CTO, Marius Istrate, immediately dissuaded us and said, we treat robots like cattle. You can just give them numbers if you wish. So we don't treat robots like people.
And how did you do it? I mean, you said you put in place a people function. How did you grow so fast while keeping standards? And probably even more difficult than keeping standards in terms of technical standards, managing to have so many teams that fit into the culture and understand the culture and start being performant. How do you do that? Well,
the answer might seem counterintuitive, but we first started with the infrastructure and guidelines, meaning that we had a few exchanges, and you have to realize that the moment I started in March 2017 is exactly the same moment that Japan and the US start in the UiPath ecosystem. So I was hired practically at the same time with the managing director of the Americas and with our CEO of Japan. So we had an opportunity to start some stuff from scratch. So we sat together, scratched our heads, and we first came up with, okay, what do we need to make this to streamline? Right? Recruitment was being done over email and through Excel files, simply not sustainable for what we were trying to achieve. So the first couple of things were to implement some pieces of software that would help us, obviously a few robots that would help us, and then establish some guidelines where a lot of the decision making at UiPath, I think Daniel highlighted this in his talk yesterday, is pushed at grassroots level. So we trust people to make their hiring decisions. The people team is not there to censor or to block anyone from doing something, but rather to support them and to give them guidance, right?
So how low do you push the hiring decision? What is what kind of approval do you need to hire someone? Let's say you have a software team of 10 people, and they think they need an 11th person.
Yeah.
How high do they have to go to get an approval to get a new colleague?
They don't need to get an approval to get a new colleague from, like, say, like C-level or anything like that. What they need to do is to do an organizational design exercise. They need to discuss amongst themselves and decide whether what they need is one more person, maybe one person from another team to join them, or maybe two persons, or maybe three persons. So. Yeah.
So they sort of have to come with like a business case in a way. Why do we need this person? How are we going to?
Yeah. What are we going exactly? Yeah.
And what is the value that is going to come out of that?
Yeah. Yeah. Now regularly we do meet, obviously, in the leadership teams of UiPath, and we kind of do a review of the entire organization where everyone sits, what slots we still have to fill. So it's not all without audit, but that's the key here, because the UiPath way of doing things is not through control and approvals, but rather through auditing things. We give people the freedom to do what they need to do, and we regularly audit, and in case we observe something that's not right, we will discuss with them and take the necessary corrective actions.
What does it mean to be a leader at UiPath? I mean, at all levels.
Yeah.
If you were to tell me, we look for these kind of people, how would you describe it?
It's very simple. Leaders have, a leader at UiPath, first of all, is a position of responsibility, not authority. That means leaders are responsible for creating a psychologically safe environment for their teams. What does that mean? That means that individual contributors are free to voice their opinions. Not only should they be listened to, they should be heard, and their leaders are accountable for taking action based on that feedback, right? So this is how leaders are evaluated. Of course, they have their set of business goals. Also, it's not all about psychological safety, but one without the other does not work. So it's a combo. Both things must happen. And I get this question from a lot of our new leaders at UiPath who are joining us from, well-rounded, respected companies around the globe, and who sometimes find it hard to reconcile this notion of, generating the necessary business results while ensuring psychological safety for their teams. But it's a fine balance, and it's funny what you can achieve once you hit it.
So if you were to describe the cultures, let's simplify it and think of two extremes. Of course, it's none of them, but for the sake of argument. On one hand, you would have a very clear set of things. I'm new in the company, and I get a set of documents and a set of conversation, and I have a very clear induction and know exactly what to do. On the other hand, it's a very Darwinian kind of place, where I'm just like, well, do things.
Yeah.
Where would you see yourselves? Where are you on that scale?
There's no right answer. First of all, that's my conclusion, having worked at UiPath and having discussed with leaders who have joined us from other companies. There is absolutely no right answer. But I will tell you this: culture at UiPath is organic. It evolves. It evolves because we are a different organization, like every 3 months maybe, and we have to evolve. As such, the guidelines that I was telling you about need to evolve, and sometimes in some of the teams you're going to have more precise guidelines and a clearer set of milestones and objectives, and there are teams like the go-to-market team, or let's say the sales ecosystem at UiPath, where we now have almost 1,000, actually more than 1,000 people just in that team, and we obviously want to make them successful as fast as possible. So we've put together this entire roadmap and program to get them in front of customers, to get them successfully in front of customers as fast as possible. Now that requires some planning and a sort of cadence in their onboarding. There are other functions where you need to let people break things. And it's not with a document that you're going to solve anything. In R&D, it's a lot of breaking things before you're actually productive. And it takes a longer time, but we are willing to accept that, because we know that if you are to get the maximum from your engineers and from your R&D team, you have to let them break things without adding constraints.
How do you fix people mistakes? I mean, inevitably, you're going to hire the wrong people, you may promote the wrong people, maybe not frequently, but it will happen. How do you handle that? Are you the kind of company that is very fast to fix the mistakes?
We're very fast to acknowledge them, I'll tell you this. Now, in terms of speed to fix them, of course, it's a variable thing. There are small mistakes and there are huge mistakes, and we've done the whole set. But sometimes it's easy. You stand up, you acknowledge your mistake, and it's, by the way, it's how we measure humbleness. I think Daniel mentioned this yesterday in his talk, that it's important to be humble, to have humility. That's how we measure humbleness. We look at individuals' capacity to acknowledge their mistakes, to own them, and even to come up with a corrective action, because sometimes when you're the one who made the mistake, it's very likely that you know how to get out of it. So a lot of times it's going to be easy. A couple of times it has been extremely hard. But one thing that we've managed to maintain at UiPath, even today when there are 2,000 of us and a much stronger leadership layer in the company, and one thing I'm particularly proud of, and one thing that makes me proud to be part of UiPath, is that leaders acknowledge their mistakes. So it has often happened that either Daniel or myself or other leaders in the company have started an all hands or a forum with the entire company by saying, I did something stupid and I need to tell you about it. And we actually have a channel on our internal Slack, which is called Love Mistakes, where we share a bunch of stuff. I wish I could share some of them with you because they're absolutely marvelous. I'm planning, after my career at UiPath, I'm going to be a stand-up comedian, and I'm gonna build up on those for sure.
I think that sounds great to me. I think one of the biggest problems I see in companies as I do my consultancy work is a culture where leaders feel like they need to seem invulnerable.
Yeah.
They're always right, and they always have the answer. They never make a mistake, and that's bad, really bad, because they cannot be true. And having the vulnerability to accept what you did wrong, what you got wrong, and just fixing it and moving on, I think that's just awesome. It's
how you build trust. I mean, if you look at the 5 dysfunctionalities of a team, you must know what.
Yeah, great book.
He talks a lot about building trust. The author Lencioni, is it?
Yeah, Lencioni. Yeah. He says you cannot build trust without honest conflict, and you can only have that if you admit.
Yeah, exactly. So we haven't invented the wheel here. We just look around us and see what the company of tomorrow looks like, and that's what we're trying to be. We're trying to be that organization of 2025, and that's why we do those things right now.
So I've heard you saying quite a few times that you're building and I want to get this right, freedom-based organization. Can you tell me briefly, what does that mean for you?
What it means, and I see this as the main responsibility of my team and other support functions in UiPath, is that our responsibility is to remove roadblocks from the path of people, create paths of least resistance to their success. Right? That means giving them freedom. And it comes back to what I was saying earlier. If I, as a leader, as a people leader, come in and say, oh, you need approval for absolutely everything that you're going to do from a people perspective, I am not supporting growth. I am actually impeding growth, and I'm sacrificing the well-being of my colleagues, but I'm also sacrificing the opportunities that UiPath has ahead. So that's what a freedom-centered organization means. Identify roadblocks and do as much as possible to remove them.
Before we take some questions from the audience, if that's okay with you, I have one final thing to ask you. What's the next big challenge? What's ahead for you, and what will be the next stage in the growth of UiPath, and what will you need to solve to get there?
Boy, that's a long question. From a business perspective, we've been in this land-grabbing mode because RPA is a fast-growing market. We've had to literally plant our flag in a number of places, be present, make our voice heard, and you cannot do enterprise software sales unless you are present. Daniel mentioned this yesterday, and I saw it stirred up a bit of debate that it's not the engineering itself that's going to save you. You need sales teams. You need go-to-market teams that know the market really well, that are well connected in that specific market, that can open doors to key stakeholders and key buyers. So that has been a challenge up to now. Now, like every domain, RPA has its hyper-growth phase. It's going to have its normal growth phase. There's going to be a stabilizing phase where phase. We're now past the inflection point, so there's definitely a challenge for us in terms of organizational design to become that enterprise software company that scales in a healthy mode, switching from the land grabbing to the stabilizing stage.
Different cultures as well.
Well, across different cultures, it's always been a challenge. But what has helped us a lot, and this is where our kind of Romanian grain fits in, is that we're coming out of a small company and small culture, and I don't mean that in any pejorative way. Please don't take it the wrong way. Romania is a small country compared to Japan or to the United States in terms of population, but also I find that people in Romania are more receptive. At least the ones we have been, we've been hiring, and we've been able to build bridges out of here. Now, obviously, these cultural beacons now are now spread across the globe. It's no longer just Bucharest. It's Bucharest, but it's also Bangalore. It's also New York. It's also Tokyo. What keeps us together is this openness and this eagerness to learn.
So are you saying that in a way we Romanians are better able to understand and adapt to other people's cultures
when we want to,
than bigger countries which are maybe more used to other people adapting to their style?
So here's the thing: we have this funny tendency of oscillating between being receptive and embracing others and being very open and hospitable to something that I call protochronism, where we think we're the smartest in the world, we're the greatest in the world, we've invented the mountains, yeah, stuff like that. So we oscillate between that, but at the core, I think that smart people in Romania are, aware of. We're not special, neither in a positive nor in a negative way. We are absolutely just like other people. We have the same opportunities ahead of us, and we are not judged more harshly or in a lighter way by others. We are judged, based on who we are as people, on our values, on our achievements.
So I think that's a great insight, because I think we all want to see more global companies headquartered in Romania, and like you guys, and thank you for being the first to do that, and we can all learn from you now. So I think this is valuable insight. Do you want to take some questions from the crowd? Is that okay?
I will just add this. UiPath is a global company. I want to highlight this because we started with a global mindset and we continued with a global mindset. And it's not. We've always been proud of our of the Romanian heritage, and we've always used that and said that openly. But I don't want us to be anchored in this and say, UiPath is not the first. By the way, we're not the first company. There are great companies that operate in Romania and do a great job. And I can give you, obviously, the example of Bitdefender, but not only. We can talk about Adobe or Amazon that have had some achievements with their centers in Romania.
Romanian-founded company.
But Romanian-founded, yeah. Bitdefender is a good example. They've opened the way. There were a bunch of others. I obviously don't know where each and every one of them is now. I hope they're all good from a business perspective.
I feel obligated to say I didn't mean to disrespect anyone. I'm just saying you guys you look like you're on a whole different level so far, and the speed with which you've got there.
I can share with you my personal feeling, which is that this is going to happen multiple times from now on in the region, not just in Romania. So because it's possible, because by the way, for those of you who are operating startups right now, there's a lot of money out there. Investors have money to put on the table for you guys. You just have to go ahead and grab the opportunity. And I think some of our investors have been in the panels and in fireside chats in this event, like Accel, Early Bird, Credo Ventures. So these guys are here because they believe they can make some money by investing in companies that are started here. And whether or not what we've built at UiPath can be an inspiration for others, I would humbly like to believe that it can be more, but more than that, maybe we can contribute by building this global school of thought around future of work, around what work is going to look like in the next 10 or 15 years, because there's more changing than just companies emerging out of new areas such as Southeast Asia or Central Eastern Europe. What's changing is that people are realizing they're going to work in a much different way, in a completely different way. Probably work contracts are going to be completely different in about 10 years' time, and this has been a long time coming. It's not.
Yeah, it's a very old model we're running now, and it's about time to change. Exciting times ahead.
Yeah, indeed.
Does anyone have any questions? Please.
So, what are the biggest challenges that you face as a chief people officer? How do people from UiPath cope with so frequent reorganization?
Yeah. Well, the frequent reorganization has been a consistent challenge, obviously, because we have to move fast. We have to change things very fast. We sometimes break things. Yeah, it's important to acknowledge your mistakes. As I said, sometimes it's not satisfying for people. One of the challenges has been to acknowledge, not just to acknowledge our mistakes, but to discuss with someone and to say, listen, this might actually not be a fit for you. Right? There are people who join UiPath and who quit in the first 3 months because they say, look, this is just not for me. I cannot do this. And I don't want to do this. Right? I don't want to be working, and it's all great, you're great guys and gals, but I don't want to be working like this. That's not my style. So, it's a bit painful because you invest initially and you put some trust into it, but it happens, and you have to acknowledge that. Bridging that cultural chasm between the United States, Romania, Japan, definitely a hard one. That has been a particularly tough challenge for me. Learning you're not supposed to make World War II jokes with Japanese, and learning you're not supposed to make age jokes with Americans. There's a lot of stuff that you learn along the way through mistakes. Sometimes smaller, sometimes larger mistakes that you make, but definitely a challenge. As long as you keep your eyes peeled and your ears open, though, to learn from others, it can be overcome. Managing expectations. This is a particular challenge for my team, for all of my team, and for myself. Right now at UiPath, we've got 45,000 exceptional people who are currently in an active recruitment process with UiPath. That's a lot of people for us to manage.
How many of them in Romania?
About 8,000-9,000 of them are based in Romania, and I think we're not doing such a great job at managing expectations of these people. They are obviously exceptional individuals who have taken the time, to analyze what UiPath is about, to apply to a job, to go through that process of applying. They're probably taking a leap of faith because they might be somewhere comfortable, and yet they're doing this, right? And we haven't yet done a sufficiently good job at explaining to them exactly how much time it's going to take, exactly what stages do they need to go through. Yeah, we've put together some messages and we're sending that, but we could do a better job. My dream is really to treat people who apply at UiPath wherever they are on the globe as royalty, literally as royalty. That's where I would like us to get, and we're not there yet. So that's one of the constant challenges for the past few months.
It's a mind-boggling number.
Yeah,
it's huge.
It
I
is.
think I saw another hand somewhere. Please.
So if I sum up the question, I think it's what's our internal communication strategy? Yeah, you put me in a spot there. Yeah. Well, there are several artifacts that we have and that we've, sort of respected since the very beginning of UiPath, since there were 10 people. So there are still regularly all hands that are moderated by our CEO, and this is where the key messages regarding the organization's future get pushed through. But then it's up to every leader, right? Whether it's C-level or the level below, to take some of that messages and cascade them. And they're using all possible channels to do so. So unfortunately, though, Slack has become something that it is simply too hard to follow with 2,000 people, so we cannot rely solely on that. What we're trying to do is, remain as transparent as possible with respect to these frequent changes that we're making. So we're announcing them either in all hands or in forums. We have dedicated meetings with everyone in the company. They're called forums, and which can be organized spontaneously if something has happened, whether good or bad. And then, regular email communication and Slack communication. But a lot of it still happens through verbal communication and forums and all hands. And even though not everyone can attend, and we sometimes have to do duplicates of the same thing on Asia time zone and then on Europe and US time zone, we find this to be the most compelling way of explaining changes that are happening. Now, don't get me wrong, this is not perfect. We don't have a silver bullet yet, and we know what we don't want to do. We don't want to transform our internal communication into a crisp, structured corporate style communication. So I think it's the leader's responsibility. I believe it's the leader's responsibility to be consistent in the way they are saying and they are communicating things, and then it becomes easier for others to pick up these things.
Yeah, example is really powerful.
Yeah, example is extremely powerful, and be kind. that's something that should transpire in internal communication. Be kind, whatever the context, because some of that, some of those changes of some of that internal communication takes place because something has happened, as I said, whether good or bad, and sometimes we're acknowledging some mistakes that were made. We're acknowledging a pivot that we need to make. Be kind, be mindful of others when you communicate that. One thing, I remember we had this forum on internal communication about 1 year ago, and we established a set of 2 simple rules when we communicate something, whether it's through Slack, email, or verbally. 1, what is the impact of what you are communicating for UiPath? How does it benefit the organization as a whole? And second, if you were a listener at the other end of the line, right, or a participant in that video call, or even live in the audience, how would you feel about what is being said to you with the manner you're saying it? So, practice it and then make it authentic and make it kind and mindful of others.
Please.
Is the mic on? Marius, congrats for the success you've had so far. Speaking of being kind to people and humble, and also taking into account that you are now hiring a lot of people, and we wish you the best of luck in the future. What is your backup plan, people-wise, in the 3-4 years' time, if you don't deliver on the results?
Yeah, that's a fair question. First of all, 3 or 4 years' time is really a long time for us to plan ahead. We're thinking more. We're setting the ambitious targets for 2019. Thinking a bit about 2020, that's true, but 2019 is really important for us. And yes, there are some fail-safe mechanisms that we've put in place from a people strategy standpoint, in case some areas do not deliver. Now, I would say, luckily for us, right now we're in a position where the 2,000 people who are here today, most of them are still overworked. So, in case something happens, people can be reassigned to new geographies, to other geographies where they can contribute. So, we have to think fast. Right, we have to think fast. We have to react very fast according to the reality of the market. So far, we've dealt with the good problems, right? But there has been turnover at UiPath. There are people leaving. So in case, what happens in any normal company, in case some things go south, right? You let that natural turnover occur, first and foremost. Then we do have. I know it might seem from the articles or from the news that this is a unicorns and rainbows environment. It's not really like that. We do have a performance appraisal system. There is an approach where we discuss with low performers. We we propose performance improvement plans, and if they don't work, they are gracefully and kindly exited from the company. These things are happening. So we are aware of challenges like this. There are fail-safe mechanisms in place, and we're actually hiring with intent right now. That's what we're doing that's our strategy for the next phase, right? Until now it has been land grabbing. Right now we're hiring with more intent, and we are getting better at balancing workload across regions and across departments to make it fair and suitable for everyone. Thank you.
I think there was another hand there.
My name is Lena Moico. Could you please tell me what is UiPath's promise to its employees?
UiPath's promise to its employees is, first of all, it's that together we're going to change the way people work. 5 years from now, and my personal dream. Do you know how in all job descriptions, in the requirements part, you've got the bottom line that says Microsoft, Windows, or Office, or whatnot, mandatory, right? Yeah. Office is always mandatory, no matter what white-collar job you have in the world. Office has been the fundamental productivity tool over the last 30 years, right?
For good and bad, yeah.
For good or bad, and I say that with a full sense of responsibility. Microsoft haters, please don't hate me, but it just is what it is. My dream is for UiPath to be there as a productivity tool. Like if you are to work in a white-collar job 5 years from now, that UiPath would be your day-to-day tool.
Want to be in the mandatory part of every job
description.
In the world.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a great goal.
Yeah, that's where I see UiPath. Now, our promise to our employees is that on our journey to that point of changing the way work looks like for everyone across the globe, we're going to have fun. And that's our promise. We're going to have some fun. And there is, Daniel mentioned this in this presentation yesterday, everyone at UiPath is we share the value with all employees through our stock option program. So we want to have fun, and we want to make this a fun ride, an engaging ride all the way through.
Hi, I'm Mihai. Regarding the pains of growing, you mentioned earlier that one way to address it is keep an open eye, keep an open ear to see what happens around. But when you get to a scale of thousands of people across all the organization, that might be difficult to spot. So have you identified a set of organizational health KPIs or data that the previous speaker said about Google? Every decision at Google needs to have some data behind it. So have you thought about it? Are you considering any of this?
So I'm a software engineer. I'm not an HR person. So obviously I'm very focused on data. I'm very much data driven. But and we do have engagement reports. We run surveys, obviously, to find out what the general feeling is. Here's what I learned. Let's put common sense first and data second. Common sense will tell you what the right thing to do is in maybe 90% of the situations. And then you've got situations where it's not obvious. So I was discussing with one of our partners/customers the other day, and they were telling me, how are we going to make our employees happier? Because we ran an internal survey, and they told us they want this and this and this. Working with employees like this is very much like trying to build a consumer app while asking the consumer what they want. The consumer don't know what they want. I mean, it's not like the employees don't know what they want. Don't get me this way, but it's more like it's not necessarily what they say that should drive the entire decision-making process, right? It's more how to align those things that you're doing, those decisions that you're making, with a vision that is commonly accepted, and that is actually common sense. So a lot of the times when people challenge me, either directly on our feedback channel, where they post some feedback anonymously if they wish to do so, and challenge any of the leaders, myself, Daniel, our chief revenue officer, whoever, right? They have the freedom to do that. And sometimes, those pieces of feedback can be really tough. And the question that I always ask myself is, okay, what's the common sense answer to this? What's the common sense approach? And it's surprising how many aha moments you get from people when you ask them some common sense questions like, have you talked to your direct leader about this problem? Because you obviously have a problem with them. Have you ever approached them to just openly discuss it? Well, no, but you know. So I would put common sense first, and then data second. I think common sense trumps a lot of.
I would definitely agree with that. I think so many people tend to over-engineer this people thing and sort of get into a kind of analysis paralysis. I think you just need to engage people honestly and truthfully and have conversations about simple things.
Yeah.
Start from there.
Yeah.
See where it takes.
Exactly. We found it to be so far so good. I will not say it's the secret for when we will be an even larger organization, but so far it has worked up to this size.
I think we have time for one more question if you have it. Please.
Thank you. You mentioned a couple of things that previously there was not a people function, and then the communication strategy, that a lot of it is part of the leader's responsibility.
Yeah.
So what I'm curious is, how do you balance between this centralized people function and the actual leaders?
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance this? And what is the size of the people?
Yeah.
And also, how do you make, once you decide the balance, how do you train or educate the leaders to do the good stuff that you expect them to do?
Yeah. First of all, the people function is not centralized. It is dispersed around the globe. It's impossible to do recruitment in South Korea from Bucharest, Romania. I mean, you can try, but it really is not impossible, but extremely difficult, right? So it's not a centralized function. Actually, none of our support functions, either finance or legal or people, are fully centralized. Yeah, of course, we started in Romania. We have our largest team is still in Romania, so a lot of the people in my team are here, but they are pretty much spread out across the globe. Your second question was, I believe, the size of the team. We're a 75 people team, just for the talent acquisition, talent development, leadership development, and this leads me to your third question, and employee engagement and administrative aspects, so compliance from an HR perspective. Yeah, so that's 75 people, plus we have a center of excellency within my team that handles exclusively the creation of new teams in new geographies, right? For your next topic was, how do we groom our leaders, right?
Yeah, you have the leaders that do a lot of...
Well, listen, you take a stick and you... no.
The carrot?
You beat them on the head with a stick until they get it. No. We have several types of programs for leadership development. One program is called the Leadership Academy, and it's organized in partnership with the Harvard Business Mentor platform, and we are working with external consultants in Asia, in Romania for Europe, and in the United States. We take all of our leaders, whether they are new leaders, new team leaders, or leaders with a bit more experience, but first-time leaders within UiPath. We take them through this basic program that takes 9 months, that walks you through really the basics, the baby steps of leadership, from goal settings, giving feedback, all the basics of leadership. Now, for the more experienced, C-level, VP-level people, let's say, who come into the company with 20, 25, sometimes 30 years of experience, you don't take them through a similar program. What we do is that we spend time with them. Now, I have a saying, I always say, 9 women will never be able to deliver a baby in 1 month, unfortunately. And one leader coming after 20 years spent in Microsoft or IBM or whatnot, think of any large enterprise software company out there, is not going to be able to just get it in 1 month and just do it. So it takes a lot of practice. It's like exercising a muscle for them, right? They have to exercise their muscle in communication to their teams and fail. They have to exercise their muscle in decision making and fail, and learn from these and reach out to other people in the organization to find out why they were wrong in the way they did things, kind of integrate that lesson and move forward. And so it's by doing. For the more senior leaders, it's a lot by doing. welcome.
So thank you so much for this very interesting conversation, Marius. A big round of applause for Marius, please.
Thank you.